Christian, stay with us. Mohammed, I would like to get your reaction on what Mr. Mollard has had to say.
I think it's a little bit difficult for any government, not only the French or even the American, to find out about these people, especially if this is an isolated or individually planned attack. This is not this person unless he was part of a cell. How would you know what people are thinking inside of them? And this is one of the biggest challenges that any government is facing in trying to stop these attacks. Unless you get some kind of a hint or someone tells you about this person, you wouldn't know. We don't know how long ago he had thought about it. He apparently thought about it because he had guns and grenades in the truck.
He didn't even need those ammunitions because he had
the truck in itself is a weapon.
Turned into
exactly,
a weapon.
Exactly.
And Owen, your reactions to this?
Well, look, I mean, going to something that Mohammed just said, there's no question that fighting lone wolf terrorism is a tremendous challenge for intelligence services. But they also have tools, especially big data. And there's essentially, as I see it, an arms race going on between the development of lone wolf terrorists and the development of big data. Which one develops faster and which one wins that race? Is there a proliferation of lone wolf terrorists, or is there better use of big data, which is to be more effective at capturing them? And I think that, or at preventing them from acting. I think that's really the arms race that this sets up.
And also you have to collect intelligence, but then you have to act upon it. Both of you, do stay with me. We're now joined by Dr. David Lee from Warwick University. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. What do you make of this latest attack in France?
Well, I think it's a tragic attack yet again on French soil, seemingly carried out by an individual who appears to have been radicalized in the French prison system. Certainly somebody who is not necessarily a hardened terrorist, but somebody obviously inclined to carrying out a particularly violent attack. It's something which comes tragically following on from a series of other terrorist attacks, as you've been talking about in France, and really the current sort of ramifications of this event can go way beyond just the confines of Nice. I think this has a lot to say about the future of President François Hollande, as you've been talking about in your programme so far, and also for the extreme right Front National, led by Marine Le Pen, which looks likely to continue to gain from this wave of terrorism in France, notably calling this morning for waging war on terrorism and indeed on Islamic extremism in France. So real political ramifications from this event, as well as the more immediate aftermath of the attack.
Real political ramifications, and the term homegrown terrorism is being used here. What can be done and what is expected of the government in order to stop this radicalization that has really spread in France in particular?
Well, I think there needs to be much more in terms of education in France around different cultures. I know you've been talking about the idea of different religions this morning. I do feel that there is a need for greater educational provision in the school system, but also indeed in the prison system, about trying to minimize the risk of radicalization. There also clearly needs to be a lot more in terms of social policies. There are huge inequalities in a lot of areas across France, including in the south, and notably in cities like Marseille. Nice is slightly different. Nice does have an area where people are perhaps less well off than others, but really the south has really struggled with this sort of difference in terms of people's backgrounds and wealth. So real social policies, particularly around trying to increase aspirations, trying to increase people's life chances. There is a real lack of that, and that's particularly surprising given that we have a socialist president who should really be trying to increase the distribution of wealth, and actually instead hasn't really done any of that.
Now, unfortunately, after these sort of incidents, a lot of times we'll see that the Muslim community is more alienated rather than the opposite because of these very extremist pockets which carry out these horrible attacks. What can be done? What should be done to better integrate these communities that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, first of all, this is a historical situation in France. I'm sure you'll probably already touched on it this morning in the programme. There is a historical trend whereby migrants to France are kind of obliged to live on the outskirts of society, simply because that's where the housing, the affordable social housing, was built in the first place. But I do think there is a real need to try and actually build more affordable social housing in the centre of cities, where there are more opportunities for work, in particular, and certainly more opportunities for education, and really trying to bring communities from North Africa who are by inclination Muslim, trying to bring them into the centre of society rather than excluding them, and really that does touch on things like education, work, trying to increase the opportunities for those people by perhaps introducing legislation which might make it easier to employ people without the use of their addresses on CVs, for example, which tends to discriminate against people living on the margins of society. But really, I think it's a case of trying to improve the distribution of wealth across the whole of society, and that will naturally then filter through to people who are from North Africa, for example, who are Muslim, and then trying to bring them into society in a more balanced way. I do think that is a policy which really needs to be introduced by the socialist government before the elections coming up next year in 2017.
David Lee, I want to thank you at this point for joining us. Owen, what kind of reactions can we expect from world leaders in the coming days?
Well, obviously, expressions of sympathy and expressions of solidarity. We've seen all the things we've become too used to beyond world leaders. Expressions of solidarity in social media, buildings lit up in the colors of the French tricolore. So we'll be seeing that, but there is a tension, and it came up with a discussion with Amir Oren on the show this morning. There's a tension on the one hand between the need for cooperation in the fight against terror, and the second, the natural urge of each of these countries to put up barriers to stop people from coming in, to try to take control of its own reins. It's the conflict between Remain and Leave. It's the conflict between Clinton and Trump. It's the conflict between globalization and nationalism. It's the story of 2016, and it seems to be reflected in this episode as well.
This is indeed the story. Owen Altman, I want to thank you at this point. You'll be joining us again later today. Mohammed, do stay with us. We're now going to see some reactions from eyewitnesses who witnessed the horrific scene yesterday. Let's hear what they had to say.
As the firework display ended, around about 10:20 local time, I turned to walk back to my apartment, which is about 200 meters away. And as I was walking back, I heard, first of all, what I thought was an explosion, but that could have been my imagination. But almost immediately was followed by a lot of screaming and a lot of people running away. I was then stopped by a policeman who told me in no uncertain terms to run away as quickly as I could.
Last night I was at the fireworks, and at the end with my friends we left and went for a walk on the promenade. All of a sudden, a huge crowd began to run, screaming, "A bomb, a bomb." All we saw were lots of people running in every direction, and so we went home and heard ambulances and lots of noise. The crowd didn't understand. It was just terror and many people running without knowing where to go. It was a really horrible experience.
Yes, I was on the promenade. It's the cries. The words of my 7-year-old son who said, "Look, Mom, there are more fireworks." And really, it was a truck that was on fire. It's kind of moving because you can see people screaming, telling us, "Leave, leave." We didn't get it. It's images of people screaming, crying, children, and the words of my son. It was very shocking.
And we're now going to go straight to London, where Prime Minister Theresa May is speaking. Let's hear.
Can you just say a few words?
Yes, I'm shocked and saddened by the horrifying attack in Nice last night. Our hearts go out to the French people and to all those who've lost loved ones or been injured. While the full picture is still emerging, it seems that at least 80 people are feared dead and many others have been injured. These were innocent victims enjoying a national celebration with their friends and families. We are working urgently to establish whether any British nationals were caught up in the attack. Our ambassador is travelling to Nice today with consular staff, and they will be doing all they can to help anyone affected. I've asked my Deputy National Security Advisor to chair a COBRA meeting of senior officials to review what we know and what we can do to help. And I will speak to President Hollande today and make clear that the United Kingdom stands shoulder to shoulder with France today, as we have done so often in the past. If, as we fear, this was a terrorist attack, then we must redouble our efforts to defeat these brutal murderers who want to destroy our way of life. We must work with France and our partners around the world to stand up for our values and for our freedom.
And Prime Minister, your Foreign Secretary said this morning that he thought that one Britain was involved in those attacks. Can you give us any updates on how many Britons could be involved in this awful attack?
Well, the full picture is still emerging, and we are working. I'm aware of the reports that there has been a Briton involved, but we're working urgently to establish if there are British nationals involved who have been caught up in this attack.
And to people out there, how worried are you about copycat attacks in the UK, and are you stepping up border security or taking any other action on British soil in light of the events in Nice?
The threat level here in the United Kingdom is already at severe. That means that a terrorist attack is highly likely. Senior officials today will be reviewing what more we can do to ascertain whether there is any further action we need to take. But our security services and our police are ever vigilant. And as I say, the threat level here is already at a level that says that a terrorist attack is highly likely.
And obviously you were Home Secretary for 6 years and now you are Prime Minister.
That was Prime Minister Theresa May just days after taking on her new post in the UK. And Britain is going to hold today an emergency COBRA meeting, so we'll have more updates from the UK and our UK correspondent later in the day. Ezra Taylor, our correspondent, joins us now in the studio. Ezra, this story has been played out immensely on social media. What do you have for us?
Well, online at the moment, right now, trending is Porte Ouverte Nice, which translates as Open the Doors Nice. So after the Bataclan theatre attack and attacks in November, the situation occurred online that many people were offering their homes to other people. As you can see there, this lady offering her home next to the train station, and various other people offering places for people to stay. Of course, it was utter pandemonium on the streets, and people just wanted to get out and go somewhere safe. So lots of people offering homes.
So all the tweets we're now seeing on the screen are individuals are offering their homes.
Yeah, offering their homes for people to get out of the streets and go somewhere safe. One of the other big hashtags that's currently trending online is this. So this is on Facebook. This is slightly different, but on Facebook right now, you may have seen that people who are in Paris, or not in Paris, in Nice rather, they will be able to say to their friends that I am safe, and it will send a notification to all of their friends so that people know.
A safety check. As on Twitter this morning, there was a hashtag looking for missing people. So now yes. Facebook is kind of giving the answer to that. What else?
Absolutely. So with regards to that hashtag which you picked up on, it's called Recherchez Nice. And what that is various people who are missing, not this picture, but various people who are missing were able to say online, we're looking for people, and we can have a look there. So you can see these people who are missing, and using this hashtag, so far people have actually been found using this. There is a story that's currently going around online of an 8-month-old baby who was left at the scene in the panic and was returned to their mother and father. And it's continuing to play out online as people are desperately looking for their loved ones and
capturing them, and I think that, or preventing them from acting. I think that's really the arms race that this sets up.
And also you have to collect intelligence, but then you have to act upon it. Both of you do stay with me. We're now joined by Dr. David Lee from Warwick University. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. What do you make of this latest attack in France?
Well, I think it's a tragic attack yet again on French soil, seemingly carried out by an individual who appears to have been radicalised in the French prison system. Certainly somebody who is not necessarily a hardened terrorist, but somebody obviously inclined to carrying out a particularly violent attack. It's something which comes tragically following on from a series of other terrorist attacks, as you've been talking about in France. And really,
any government is facing in trying to stop these attacks, unless you get some kind of a hint or someone tells you about this person, you wouldn't know. We don't know how long ago he had thought about it. He apparently thought about it because he had guns and grenades in the truck.
But he didn't even need those ammunitions because he had
the truck in itself is a weapon.
In itself turned into a weapon.
Exactly.
And Owen, your reactions to this? Christian, stay with us. Mohammed, I would like to get your reaction on what Mr. Millard has had to say.
I think it's a little bit difficult for any government, not only the French or even the American, to find out about these people, especially if this is an isolated or individually planned attack. This is not this person unless he was part of a cell. How would you know what people are thinking inside of them? And this is one of the biggest challenges that...
Well, look, I mean, going to something that Mohammed just said, there's no question that fighting lone wolf terrorism is a tremendous challenge for intelligence services. But they also have tools, especially big data. And there's essentially, as I see it, an arms race going on between the development of lone wolf terrorists and the development of big data. Which one develops faster and which one wins that race? Is there a proliferation of lone wolf terrorists, or is there better use of big data which would be more effective at